I want to welcome everyone to our April Board of Education meeting. And I'm going to ask Dr. Gunn if you would open us in prayer and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Our Father, we come now just thanking you, O God, for all that you do for us. We thank you, God, for your love, your mercy, and your kindness. Now, God, we ask that you be a part of this meeting tonight. God, we invite you in. We pray for our superintendent, our board members, all administrators, staff, students, teachers, and the community, God. Just bless Lincoln County. Now, God, we'd ask you just to take control of this meeting and that everything be done and said in decency and order. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Gunn. Item on the agenda, next item on our agenda is the consent items. They consist of the agenda, minutes of the March 8th, 2022 meeting, minutes of the March 29th, 2022 call meeting, and an overnight field trip, FCCLA.
Mr. Chair, if I could jump in here for just a minute to help clear up some possible confusion. We've been blessed in FCCLA in the past to have a student that was the state president of FCCLA. That was Matthew Penrod. And this year, Kane is also an officer. Now, he is not the president, but he is an officer, which is wonderful, and we want him to participate in those things. The problem is we don't know when the meetings are set until about a week and a half to 2 weeks ahead of time, which isn't always conducive for a board meeting. For Mr. Penrose, what we set up was the board allowed for that event overnight to happen, and the board approved all of those so that he could just go to that overnight event and serve as that president. And I would like the same thing for Mr. Kane to be able to serve in his capacity as an officer in FCCLA. So that's why this is here so late, and that's the purpose of me jumping in. I apologize, but I didn't get this till today. Do you need to add anything to that, sir?
He's Vice President of Public Relations. That's
Okay.
what his role is.
All right. It's Nick Tavius, right?
No, Isaiah.
Isaiah. Okay, on one. Okay.
Do we send the chaperone with them, or is that?
Yes, actually, Miss
Personal, because he's going to drive him, and Ashley Veal is the other student that is participating in that.
Miss Atkins takes them down there, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions on the agenda items, consent items, sorry?
Make a motion to accept consent items.
All right,
Presented.
we have a motion to accept the consent items as presented, second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous. We have no public participation tonight, so we're going to go on to our financials.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay, so these are our financials ending March 31st, 2022. We are 75% throughout the fiscal year. So if we go down to the bottom, you can see that we are actually quite in line, a little bit over, with a total of 77.73%. So we are doing quite well. I will say that the 22 budget that you're looking at right now, it is actually the amended budget, which we will be presenting on shortly. But I just wanted to give you all these figures so that we weren't comparing to last month's figures. These are the updated current ones, so you can see the percentages on the side. A few items.
So this is what we're going to be looking at to
Yes.
approve? Okay.
Yes, exactly. So wanted to give you percentages that are in line with what you are going to maybe approve. Or will approve.
And that's the revenues there, right? Revenue?
This is the revenues,
Okay.
yes. Okay. Any questions looking at this? We have changed the QBE, which you'll see in a little bit, and we have also, let's see, those are the biggest ones. We've updated the sale of the the old school, that 82,000. as well as we've added the impact aid, which we always budget at 0, just because we never know if we're fully gonna get that. So we did update those, so you can see now we're at 100% for both of those. Those are the big ticket items.
Now, on the PBE,
Mhm.
that is usually always, why is that so low?
So those are the things we're about to see come in April. So we've already updated the budget, but they're gonna be paid out in the next month.
Okay, so that's the
There's just,
2,000,
yes,
for-
just updated
okay.
items.
Alright. Okay.
Increase
excellent.
in the midterm.
Yep, all right, thanks.
Okay, next up we have our expenditures, same thing, we've also updated these, the 2022 fiscal year budget to reflect what we're about to present, to give more actual percentage of the 75%. We are currently less than that as a total at the bottom, 69%, which is great. The biggest category that we're over currently is that 81%, 81%, it's the improvement of instructional services, and that also, same thing, we're gonna be paying out them next week, we've already updated it, so, that's the big ticket items there. Okay, next up we have our cash and investments of 3.9 million, and a fund equity of 3 million. And the next page is just our revenues and expenditures with the 3 million end of period. Okay, moving on to our SPOS collection proceeds. This month we collected for February and we were actually at 77,000. This is higher than last month as well as prior year, which is great, and we are hoping to continue at that pace of collections. Okay, next up we have our SPOS summary as of March 31st, 2022. This month we paid out our bond and interest payments, so you see that big 983,000 coming out, leaving us with a balance for our SPOS of 111,000. Moving on to our bond ad valorem tax, we've collected 91.97% of our budget, and we also had payments of 563,000, leaving us with a bond balance of 532,000, and our total is 644,000, which will pay our October 1st, 2022 payment, and then some. And you can see that we've updated it to say that we have paid our March 31st interest and principal, 383 and 780 in principal. Okay, capital projects, nothing really to report here. I think we had 6,000 come in that we spent, but just for the concession stand materials, as well as some interest. Okay, here are our financial status reports for the general fund. We have our monthly that we've spent this month, our year-to-date, our budget, which is updated, and the percentage of the budget. So as we've said, we're 77% of our 75% for revenues and 69% of our expenditures. Okay. Moving on to our special revenue funds. Same format, monthly, year-to-date, budget, and percentage of budget. Nothing really to say here. We've matched our funds to what our state has approved, so. Capital projects funds, no changes, but that little bit of 6,000 that came in for this past month of expenditures. And then our debt service fund, we actually had some, as y'all can tell by the SPOS collections, that we've had some revenues come in, but also we've had our debt service payments, which ties to the SPOS schedule. Okay, so.
Any questions from the students?
I do have one.
Okay.
The student transportation, as to my knowledge, we did receive our new bus.
Yes, sir, we did.
And we just haven't
We haven't paid for it yet.
Okay, so we just
As far as I
have.
know, we don't have an invoice, so.
Okay, no,
We
that's
must have
fine,
just
but
gotten
I just
it.
knew it was in, so now we wait, they'll send the invoice, we
Yeah.
make sure everything's good, and then that's what that PO will be
That's
for, is
the
that
biggest part
correct?
of that, yeah.
Okay, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
I want to say we received it Friday or Thursday of spring break.
Okay, so nobody. Just curious.
And that's the last bus without air conditioner, is that gonna take care of them?
It's replacing, what it's
Yeah.
replacing.
Yeah, so all of them have air conditioner?
Yeah, it should.
I believe that takes care of it, but I don't want to fib to you, I'll check.
I think
believe that takes care
the
of it.
AC is
Well,
yes.
we will know in about a month. It'd
I
be
do-
nice when you did that.
I was told the AC was yes, but we do still have some that are diesel. They're not all propane.
We do still have some diesel, but I believe they have air conditioning.
That is
Yeah.
true,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
That-
That's
that is-
okay,
And
I guess.
It's more
Yeah.
tolerable if they have air conditioning. We still want to get to all propane.
Yeah.
So, I got a question, so that PO for 137,000, is that what that is? Under 4,000, facilities acquisition and construction? What is
See
that?
what page we're
That's
on.
not it, is it?
Which one, the bus?
No, it's not the
104
bus.
is the bus. Well,
Bus is student
102 of that
transportation.
is the bus.
Yeah, but you're looking at 137.
I'm looking at line item 4,000.
Oh, that's bus.
What is that?
On this one, on this page.
Yeah.
You're talking about 137 under the
Yeah.
facilities?
Suspended, yeah.
Yes, I got that.
That PO, I was just curious what it was.
Let me find it.
Flooring,
I think
probably.
that's the flooring at the.
Yeah, elementary school flooring.
Yeah, was the bulk of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
about 100 and something like that.
Okay.
Any other questions? We'll read this report. Okay.
Okay, well, this leaves us to the amended budget that we are proposing. The general fund, I'm gonna walk you through all the changes since the original budget. However, before we get into that, I just wanna say that the special revenues funds, what we did here is we just matched the state and federal grants, which have already been approved by the state at this time. So that is exact to what's been approved by the state. The general fund, we have some changes that we're gonna walk through. So,
Heel. Yes, ma'am. All right.
okay, first up, we have an adjustment to the QBE to the midterm allotment. As of right now, this is still unofficial, we haven't gotten the official document, but this is what they sent to us. It's $234,875. This is a little bit less than the amended formula adjustment, but pretty in line with that austerity. Next up, we have the IDA ARP 611. This is a new grant, and what we are doing is we are funding 1.5 parapros with this, so taking them out of the general fund and gonna have federal monies for them.
Can you tell us anything about that? What is that grant? Is it something that's gonna be repeatable or one
So
time?
one
or-
time, right?
One time. Yeah, for special ed.
I was going to ask Dr. Gumby, because I know he's the one that funded it.
What was it for now? I heard a word, the last word you said, hair, what did you say?
Parapros.
Hair pros, okay. I might get here in a minute.
If we get a hair
You've been
grant,
in New York too long, I can't hear you talking real fast.
if we get a
It's not
hair
an
grant,
issue
I'm gonna
with
be
anyone
first in
else.
line, so you're just gonna have to wait your turn.
Okay. I thought you said something.
Next up, we have adjust grants to approved. This is only $2,000 worth. It's really just CTAE and the preschool special ed, so not much there. Next up is impact aid revenue, which y'all saw earlier. We updated that to $244,000. Employee replacements, just, people go, people come, and $15,000 favorable. Add the revenue from the sale of the old coaches building of $82,000. Adjust intangible and real estate transfer tax, $60K. This is because we've just seen more coming in these past few months, and we just think it's gonna continue at this level. Same with the TAVT. Currently, the TAVT, we already have 362 out of the 600K budget that we bumped it up to, and we're averaging about 70K a month. So we think we have 4 months left, and we think we'll hit that. Moving on to the supplemental salary grants. That is what we are receiving from the state. And then below it is what we will have to pay. You'll see a little bit of difference, and that's FICA, that they are not supplying us. Next up, we're moving on to more of the expenditure side now. We have a bus driver salary and benefits, so we've added a bus driver. These two big ticket items were approved at the February board meeting. It was the non-cert salary increase. This was $94,000, but it was only half a year, so we started January 1st. And then we also have just the one-time salary payment of, I think it was $1,000, yeah, for 109. Next up, we had a half-year weight training class added, so a teacher gave up his planning to perform this weight training class for an extended day. Prior purchase orders not received, so we moved it here and we took it out of last year's budget, so it's net, but we're just moving the money to a different period because you can't spend it if you haven't received it. We had a SPLOST election expense of $10,500. This was due to it not being during the regular election cycle, so we had to pay for this one. If it's in a regular cycle, we don't have to pay. We adjusted the RESA expenditures we talked about last time. We've added 6 Chromebooks for boardroom because we could not pay that with federal grants because it's not instruction. And we have the LCES parking lot paving of $161,000, which has been approved by the board. Those are the main ones I wanted to go through. Below this, I'll just start naming out what they are, but all of these coming up have been approved by the board. We just wanted to kind of list it out line item by line item so you can see. We had painting and vinyl for the old high school building. We had HVAC units at the old campus, repairs at the old campus, stadium cleaning, electric panel repair, a basketball shot clock at LCHS, a safety lock, sound system at soccer field, soccer goals, baseball grade repair, additional maintenance, ice makers, freezer, custodial equipment, safety lock at LCES, tree removal, roof and door repairs, sewer and drain expenditures, metal replacement, additional maintenance at LCS, additional custodial equipment at LCES, increase in groundskeeping supplies, and then adjust the transfer to pre-K. So this is just a reduction in the expenditure, leaving us with the total changes of $228,658, which basically is our QBE that we're receiving this year that we had an increase in. And then we adjusted our beginning fund balance of $474 to actuals. And so our difference in our ending fund balance from the original budget is $703,000, leaving us with an amended ending fund balance of $1.5 million, well, $1.6 million. And this is approximately 11.17% of our total estimated expenditures, which in our policy it says we need to be in between 10 and 15%, and so we are hitting that greatly. And that's all I have to say.
Any questions?
11.
You would need to vote for approval.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the amended budget as presented.
I'll make a motion, we approve the amended budget as it was presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Madison,
A second.
second by Ms. Barksdale. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Next, we have Strategic Waivers School System Contract Amendment.
I believe the majority of the board remembers the strategic waiver that was agreed to and signed off back in 2016, right before I got here. There was a lot of requirements in that event. There was a lot of things you could waive. You could waive things such as certification. There's a whole list. In fact, that form is the contract. There's a bunch of things that are in there, and I can read them all if you want, but I don't want to waste your time. because all of those things really didn't matter because COVID got in the way, as well as CCRPI got changed multiple years in a row, and they could not keep with a constant system to evaluate school districts. That being said, they continued to move the bar, but the bar accountability standards continued to change. So what they've done is they've keep pushing these things back, then they got hit with COVID. Once COVID got in the way, they could not create a baseline because there was a number of schools that weren't in school. We were blessed to be able to be in school. Now they've reached almost to the end of the term of the strategic waivers, which is supposed to expire June 30th. And they want us to approve the strategic waiver contract amendment to push it all the way out to 2024. That also gives them time, without COVID, to set a new baseline. If they leave it the way it is, they don't have a chance to set a new baseline. So they're asking the entire the entire state to sign a contract amendment waiver. This is amendment number 2, to simply state that the contract is hereby amended to insert the following as new section 20 to read as follows. This contract shall become effective on July 1, 2016, and with the February 2022 amendment due to the unforeseen circumstances as determined by the State Board of Ed, which resulted in only 2 years of accountability data, during the 5-year performers term will end on June 30th, 2024. So they're recommending that we do this by June 30th. I thought we would get it over with and do it this month.
So when it says the February 2022 amendment, that is the State Board of Education amendment?
Yes, which
Okay.
sent it out to us to say this amendment needs to be signed by everybody by June 3rd.
Some of the things that, because I know you weren't here when we did this, everybody else was here. Or were you?
I don't think I was.
Actually,
No.
okay. So, as much as anything, it was just paperwork. But, from my best recollection on this, there are certain things that the state requires. I mean, that whether it's the state board or exactly who, there are certain things that we're required as a school system to do. By doing the waivers that we put in, you had several options. You could do a charter option, that was one. You could do a status quo where you just went exactly by everything. And if we'd done that, anytime we ever needed to have, like to waive, hey, we don't need to have a certain amount of teachers, we don't need to have this administrator. You know, we know in our system that we don't need this specific position, then we could get, we can get a waiver to not have that person or, that position. If we did status quo, we couldn't do that. So we did this strategic waiver system so that when we did need something to change, because of budget or just because of personnel qualifications, we went that route. But all throughout, they're supposed to have been monitoring, and so if we had issues, if we weren't meeting certain criteria along the way, then the state could come in and take over, which they've actually done that in some schools. Or some school systems. We've never had that issue, we've never been close, but that's why we had to go with the strategic, that's why we chose to go with the strategic waiver. The board at that time chose to go that route. And I know it's probably a very poor explanation of it, but it gives us flexibility that we wouldn't have otherwise. And like I said, there was like 3 options. I think one was the charter, one was status quo, and one was the waiver aspect
Right,
of it.
strategic waiver. There was only 2 districts in the entire state that stayed status quo. The rest of them picked one of the 2 options, either charter or strategic waiver.
But like I said, that was running out this June, but because they've not been able to get any data to grade us by, to judge us by, they're wanting us to extend that. Any questions on that?
I think we have discussed this before, I remember discussing. I think we're rolling along pretty good myself.
I agree.
All right.
It's a state piece of paperwork, and
To allow us to keep doing just like what we do.
To
I
leave
mean,
us-
basically, that's.
to
Yeah.
leave us with
This
the waiver we
paperwork-
currently have.
This
Yes,
This paperwork doesn't change anything we're doing.
We're doing
today.
currently.
correct.
That's right.
It would allow us to maintain.
That's the peace of mind.
You need a motion?
I do.
All right, I'll make a motion, did you sign that paper? As is.
All right. We have a motion to approve this amendment
There you go.
by Mr. Heitman. I'll make a second. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you all.
Next on the agenda is Head Start, returning to Lincoln County.
I've been working on this for quite a while and finally got the opportunity to meet with the new director of Head Start again. Ms. Belcher is her name. She actually sent a group to the old high school the first time that we met. And then after they came back with a positive report, when I provided my vision for how I thought Head Start could work over at the old high school, and I think y'all remember, but my vision for the old high school Head Start would be as you're facing the front door of the old high school, the right-hand side, that front classroom and possibly the second classroom, if we have enough children to justify it, on that right-hand side would be Head Start. As you remember, the far left-hand side is where we put GMC to do our dual enrollment classes. Now, on top of that, as we continue to try and use that building, there's a grant going on with the church here in town that we talked about recently that is going to provide some mental health counseling. That mental health counseling would provide they only need one room. Unless they have an additional counselor and an additional need, then we would have space for 2 rooms. Now, the way I understand it, most of that happens in the evening, but if they want it during the day, it's not going to be in the way of either use of either side. So they could have that opportunity without a question as they need it, and I think that's something that could benefit the entire community as well. But getting back to Head Start, the first time I met with them, I set out my vision of what I think Head Start could be on the old campus. It's right there next to buses, it gives them a lot of security, and it's not a busy road, obviously, going through there. They need to keep the kids within a fenced area, so we'd have to provide a fence, which would be pretty simple. They came back on March 23rd. I actually met with the director. She was in agreement that they want to come back to Lincoln County. Jody Heiss and I met with Jason. We went to Greene County and actually started this whole process working. Very happy that we're finally inviting them back. I have talked to Mr. Mills twice, who is their facility director, and with board approval of them being able to come back from the letter that they've supplied, him and I are going to determine the amount of financial commitment on their side and the amount of facility commitment on their side to make this happen. And the whole idea is for this to start in August. So we're trying to put all this back together. We need Head Start in Lincoln County. We need to take care of those 3-year-olds. And as you're aware, that old trailer is wore out. And that was one of the other things that him and I talked about, was that trailer has to be gone before they start down here. So just trying to put all the pieces together, trying to educate the board, but we do need a recommendation to approve Head Start if they're going to be back in Lincoln County to be over at the old high school.
Any questions about this?
Do we have any idea how many kids we're possibly looking at? I mean, just.
As Dr. Gumby and I went through a guesstimation trying to figure out where we were guessing between 20 and 25. Now, that's not a guarantee. Sometimes those numbers are a little bit lower, but in the past, we've had anywhere from 15 to 25. And they're asking for 17. I would love to have 20 just to make a good cohesive group, but those numbers are kind of sporadic. And as you look at classes of children going through, you'll have a class of 99, you'll have a class of 80, and all of a sudden you have a class of 60. And then they bump right back up to 90. So that's part of being in a small community, but we're hoping to stay around 17 to 20. I would love to see 25, but 17 to 20.
Question.
Yes.
What is your vision when you're negotiating financial obligation?
Well, they're gonna take care of the personnel to start with, so that portion of it isn't ours anyway.
Okay.
What I'm hoping that they will do, and what I'm gonna try and negotiate with them to do, is to take care of the facility cost of electric, because they're the ones that's gonna be in it most of the time. And then as we put in facilities for them, in other words, the little bitty commodes, because of the little 3-year-olds, you can't have normal sized commodes in there. Those kind of things I want to strap to them, because it's something that's not for us, it's just for them. Something as simple as an air conditioner over there, we gotta do that anyway. So those are the types of things I'm gonna try and get them to help us financially with. Again, electricity, which would be lights and water and all those kind of things, electricity, water, utilities, and then turn around and they take care of things that are directly related to them.
Is it possible that we could make it just a little step further where it wouldn't be a burden at all on the community? I mean, I don't know how to say
I'm
that.
hoping that's not a burden just to the point that I brought it to. I don't think it would be, because they're taking care of electricity.
Well, the facility maintenance, like, I mean, it is a brick building, we just spent some money on it. We don't
We did.
want, we don't want to spend the $30,000 or $40,000 on your air conditioning unit. So if they
Agreed.
need to put some type of rent each month, which will go towards that expense one day.
We can add that to it.
I mean, I'm just
We
suggesting.
can add that to it if that's what the board would like. I'd be more than happy to suggest it.
I mean, do you see them having the ability to do that financially?
I think financially they can afford that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Will we have to petition any of that building completely off, or will it still be open area between the left and right wings?
It'll still be open as far as the main hall
That's what
walk through.
So we don't have to do any type of petition just
No.
to?
No, they didn't want that. They didn't ask for that. They did ask to use one of the little offices up in the front row, which would help if somebody came in either looking for a child or came in that was lost, that we could redirect. So somebody would be up there, which was helpful.
I just know that was something we had talked about before when discussing the building, so.
Yeah, if we needed to, and thankfully that's not what they wanted, which I'm glad. Now, there is doors on that far right-hand side, so we could close those doors if that was a safety issue in their mind.
So you need a motion to move forward?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with the Head Start returning to Lincoln County.
Second. We have a second by Ms. Barksdale. Any other discussion?
So are we gonna be, we're gonna do the final approval once you present it to us, right?
We're gonna approve tonight, we would approve only that they could come back. Now, I've gotta take care of the financial stuff and bring that back to you.
Okay. I just
My
wanna make sure.
plan is to do that next month, but that's gonna take some negotiating between us, so.
Okay.
Because we're hoping to make this happen for 2023, 22, 23.
22, 23 school year, yes, sir. So my plan is to bring it back next month.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Next on our agenda are the policies for revision.
Okay, we have 4 total policies. First one is special education IDDF. There's a couple of small changes. There's the addition of special education services will cease on the student's 22nd birthday, which is when the state actually stops the QBE funds for our students. So if a student would be in school up to that point, when they get to their 22nd birthday, we no longer receive funds for them, so they would cease being a student in Lincoln County. And then there's the cross out on the bottom, and who have any other areas of special needs that may be identified. So that's the only change on that one. The next one is, there's two pieces to this. There's IHA and IHE that I sent everyone in an email on Monday. And Mrs. Arthur is the resident expert on all of this, but the purpose of these two policies being changed is to go back to a numeric grading system for grades 1 and, or K1 and 2. In the past, recent past,
Okay,
I'm sorry?
not K.
1 and 2, yes, I'm sorry, 1 and 2. I'm looking at G kids up above, 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, in fact, are going to be all numeric. In the past, we had approved and attempted to do standards-based grading. That standards-based grading is looking at each standard that is taught during that 9 weeks, grading that student on that standard, and then the next 9 weeks you go to another standard. If that student doesn't master it, yes, you have to go back, but parents don't understand that you received a 1 or a 2 on this standard, we went over here, and you received a whole lot of 3s and 2s, which is great. 2s and 3s in standards are what they're supposed to be, but the student is still not passing. It's very confusing for the parents and confusing for the children as well, but more the parents to try and understand how well their child is doing. They're more accustomed to a numeric grading system. So the recommendation came from the elementary school on Monday, although they've been talking about it for a month or two. The recommendation came from the elementary school on Monday to change back to a numeric grading system. To be able to do that, we have to make the adjustments to IHA and IHE to reflect that recommendation. What would happen when we do that is they would lay on the table for 30 days to receive input from the community and/or board members. And then if they're not changed after they're on the table for 30 days, then we would vote on them for final approval, which is how we handle all of our policies. Ms. Arthur, I'm going to let you talk because you're a lot more intelligent on this than I am.
Well, just for example, in kindergarten, they have to do GKIDS, which is a mandated assessment. And what our teachers are having to do now is GKIDS plus all the standards. And that the parents get the GKIDS results and they get the standards-based report card results. So our kindergarten teachers are working double time assessing children when they could just use GKIDS. So that's why we said leave kindergarten out of the numeric grades, because GKIDS is scored differently. And then in 1st and 2nd grade, just for example, this afternoon we received 3 new students. And they came in to us from another district with numeric grades. So when we call the school, because we've got to convert it to standards-based so that we can give them an end-of-the-year report card, you ask the other school, you know, well, okay, this is a 73, so what standards was this child taught? Because we need to know so that we can teach the rest of them, you know, to give them their end-of-the-year report card. Well, we never get that information back. And because they're teaching the standards and they're giving the numeric grades. And then we've met, I can't even tell you, all last summer. We had a big workshop. We've been working in our weekly grade level meetings so that our teachers can understand exactly what the standard's asking for. And then, you know, you got to make sure your grading practices are the same if you're in 1st grade. You don't want to sit in Mr. Heitman's classroom and then come to Ms. Arthur's classroom. He grades one way, I grade a different way, because we're all in 1st grade. So we've been working hard trying to get that established. And then we spend a lot of time explaining to parents, if we grade, let's just say 6 standards the first 9 weeks, and the student does well and has 3s, and then the next 9 weeks, we do another set of standards and they don't do so well. Well, they had 3s last time. Why do they have 2s and 1s this time? And so we have to spend time going through that whole process, and they don't we're having a difficult time helping them understand it. You know, we've consulted with the teachers, we talked to the leadership team, we've met with each grade level. And if we could go back to numeric grades 1 through 5, it would be a better way. We could look at our assessments and have those common assessments and common grading practices, so it wouldn't be differences within the grade. And that's kind of where we're at and what we're asking for.
Any questions of Ms. Parker?
How long have we been doing what we currently do?
We, the standards base was there before I came, Mr. Madison. I think Ms. Acock started it, I can't remember which year, before I got there. And when they first started, according to the teachers, they had some training, but not a whole lot of training. So what Mrs. Goldman and I have been trying to do is train them on, and they had training on the standards and looking at them and breaking the standards apart and that kind of thing. Then they had to make priority standards, and then they have to look at those standards and figure out, you know, what are we going to teach when, and if we don't get to them, which one, you know, how are we going to work with that? Because what you have to do is if a child doesn't meet the standard or 70% of their standards, then they don't go to the next grade. Or if they don't master a standard first 9 weeks, like right now, all this week, we've been working on going back to every child that has a standard-based report card, and if they received a 1 or a 2, first, second, or third 9 weeks, we're reteaching, reassessing, trying to make sure, give that child another chance to master that standard, because it was the first 9 weeks when it was taught and graded. So it's very time consuming. And some of our elementary schools in the CSRA do it, but a lot of them, most of the ones that we're having to deal with, getting students in are numeric. And it just makes it easier because they can have common assessments and common grading without all of the confusion of what is a 3? What does a 3 look like? You know, what is a 2?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
What was the purpose of her changing to that?
And
Just-
Mr. Heitman, that would have to be, that was a thing that, she would have to answer it, but I know several schools went to standards-based back then. Since then, some have stayed standards-based and some have gone back to numeric. And there, if you look at the research, there's research that says it's good, and then you have research, just like anything, that says it's not.
I do remember part of the conversation, it would make us more standards focused. And as we're more standards focused, then we're meeting what the state requires and our students should be better prepared. I do remember that portion of the conversation. Now, we're still going to teach the standards. That portion of it doesn't end. But demonstrating the success or the failure of that child is more easily understood from mom and dad's point of view with a numeric grade than it is with a 1, a 2, or a 3 on a particular individual standard.
Because they take each standard and grade each standard. And if, like, for example, when they give their unit test, it's more than one standard on there. So they have to go through and say, okay, this standard, you gotta look at it as a team. How did this child do? And that's what we do in grade level meetings, is spend a lot of time looking at all that student work, determining what is a 3 and what does a 3 look like. We've created rubrics for that, and just getting parents to understand that rubric and how it's done. It's just hasn't been successful the way they would like for it to be. And Mrs. Goldman and I have been talking about it for several months, like Dr. Blake said, with our grade, every Wednesday at our grade level meetings with those teachers. And that's just kind of what
So how's it, are you gonna have any issues with students in first grade moving to second grade that, I don't remember how G kids or the K kids, what kindergarten?
G
G-Kids, you're
Yeah,
correct.
yeah,
You're right
Yes,
there.
sir.
It's
Well,
the acronym, I don't know where
It
it
is.
is over there somewhere.
in kindergarten, it's, You know your numbers 1 through
Yeah.
whatever, you know your letters, you know your letter sounds. It's a little different, especially when you move on up, you know. Your standards get harder as you progress through the grades, and they have more parts to them. So a standard is not just can the student count from 1 to 20. It builds upon that, and the standard is much more comprehensive.
I guess my question is, you don't see any issue with a first grader that's learned this grading system we're on now going to, because they're gonna have to
They're gonna
go,
still
they're gonna
teach
go
the
in third
standards.
grade, right?
Yes, sir, they're gonna still teach the standards. They, you know, they're still gonna work and have common assessments, they're still gonna do all that. It will just be numeric.
Well, the parents understand too, because that's how they were raised.
That's
right?
correct.
That's how they were taught.
And that's truly where the confusion is. That's what they're used to.
Okay, so they're getting mad at their kids, and they should be getting mad at them.
Or not understanding why they're not doing well.
You know what an 85 is, but you don't know what a 2 is.
Yeah.
That's the
Which is a
basic.
fair
yeah,
assumption.
I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
to the, I mean.
I don't think Gavin had to worry about that. I mean, it was A, B, C, or D.
Well, I think, you know, just by it being that way, 1st through 12th, having that consistency, doing what they did prior to being standards, which was looking at the standards, breaking them all apart, deciding what was most important, how to attack that standard as a teacher, and having that training and getting it done. You can still show mastery. It's just the way you show progress to the parents. And the report card, unfortunately, is progress to parents. And if they're not understanding it, what's the purpose?
The number means a lot to some kids too, when you talk to them about it, when they're looking at that number.
Well, they got to, that's how they're being measured. And they're first and second graders, but they're already gonna be changed when they get third. So they're not gonna miss this.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Arthur.
Yes, sir.
Next policy for revision is JBD. JBD is awarding units of credit and accepting of transfer credit for grades. Now, this more appropriately reflects back to being able to award credit means if you're accredited or not. Now, all of us remember, I believe, the old Southern Association of Colleges and Schools that did evaluations for at least 50 to 60 years in Georgia. They changed it to advanced ed. It was advanced ed for about 4 years, and now they have changed it to Cognia. To eliminate all of those possibilities of changes, what we have done is crossed out all of those accrediting bodies and identified that whatever accrediting body from one of the accrediting agencies identified in the law, OCGA 20-3-519-6A or OCGA 20-3-519-6B, the term does not include entities that are accredited as home study programs or non-traditional educational centers. Now, home study and non-traditional are not accredited, that's why it says that. So this links us back to the law. So if Cognia would turn around and become the Heitman-Madsen accrediting agency, it would still be in the law, so we would be following the law. So that's why we have done that, is we have linked this to the law. So whatever that agency name is, we don't have to change our policy. As you slide down to page 2, subject area competency, we have eliminated instead of or in combination with the completion of courses through traditional classroom instructional minutes as described in the section 2F of this rule based on the change of online classes, etc. So that's why that's been removed. And again, these are recommendations that will lay on the table for 30 days, and then we will bring them back for final vote next month.
Okay. Superintendent's reports.
I got a couple of things. I talked to Kathy Coleman in the governor's office. House Bill 1036 is up for signature, which we knew, and the question we had 4 or 5 times is, does it start July 1? Does it start January 1? When does it start? It starts the day after it's signed. So if it's signed at 3:00 p.m. on Wednesday, it starts at 12:01 on Thursday. So it starts right away. So that helps clear up that piece. I finally got a hold of her.
Where's that bill?
That's the bill for compensation for board members.
Oh, okay.
The next one is Superintendent Woods has named Lincoln County for 2022 AP Honors School, and we want to congratulate our AP Honors classes, but we are named as an AP Challenge School. Lincoln County is named as an AP Challenge School. Now, to my knowledge, we hadn't been named that before, but there are 8 criteria, and we were named as one of them, and want to congratulate all of our AP students and all of our AP teachers that work so hard to advance themselves. And I wanted to bring that out today because some of that stuff really never hits the newspaper very hard, but we need to congratulate our AP folks. So we will pass that on and thank them for doing super well. I put on the table for all the board members your 2022 legislative positions. This is current, that was adopted in June 23rd of 2021, which would have been back for your group. They are still taking proposals for changes up to the 28th of April, and then they'll put out those proposals for reference to us. We'll have that in May. The board will discuss in May how they want our representative to vote in Savannah in June. So that's how all of this process is supposed to work. I hope they're on time. You remember, I think it was the year you did it, they were way behind, and we had to send it around to everybody and discuss it and send it back. But I wanted to keep everybody up to date. This is the latest, so when I send you the changes, you may see some different pieces on there. So that's why you have this tonight. And I believe that's all I have for super. Oh, also have the training for May 3rd, which is over at Washington Wilkes Board of Ed from 8:30 to 2:30. It may be 8:30 to 3:30, but plan on being there at 8:30. They provide lunch. It's always a very good lunch. And GSBA is doing the training.
Any other questions? All right, need a motion to go into executive session. Motion by Mr. Madison, second by Mr. Reese. Call our meeting back to order. Dr. Light has recommended, and I make a motion that we accept the retirement of Ms. Kay Light effective 6/30/2022.
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Dr. Light has recommended, and I make a motion that we hire Jeremiah Johnson as assistant principal at the elementary school, beginning 2022-23 school year.
Second.
Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Unanimous. Dr. Light has recommended, and I make a motion that we terminate Ronnie Cleveland effective 4/12/2022.
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Reese. All in favor? Dr. Light has recommended, and I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Ms. Connie Burton effective 3/31/2022. Second by Ms. Barstow. All in favor? Dr. Light is recommended, and I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Mr. Pat Law effective April 30th, 2022.
Second.
Second by Mr. Madison. All in favor? Dr. Light is recommended, and I make a motion that we give all admin, faculty, and staff the $2,000 stipend funded by federal and state funds. Second by Ms. Barksdale. All in favor? Unanimous. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn by Mr. Hyden,
Second.
second by Ms. Barksdale. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.